Blog Talk Radio.
Galvin.
Have you ever wondered why it's happening again?
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, rakhma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
To the brightness within you and the truth that is rooted within me.
I am welcome to Mindshifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. And today is Aramaic Friday, and we already have Dale with us on the phone, and Tim's with us, and David's with us. It looks like the whole family's here. Today is Memorial Day celebration, number 298. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, sweetie, and welcome everybody to the show. We are absolutely delighted to be here to support you in this quest for an understanding of the ancient Aramaic tool of forgiveness and all the other corollary sanity that comes with that. And, of course, we'll just do a brief intro to our honoring of Veterans Day and of Memorial Day, and that is we're here. Our whole goal, one of the primary purposes in what we're doing is to end war on planet Earth and create a space where human life governs, human life expresses. And if you have any doubt or any question about what a human life is, just hold a newborn child. You'll know exactly what a human life is. And that's what's designed to be operational here on planet Earth. And that's what we're here to support. And we have the blessing on Fridays of doing Aramaic Fridays, where we have Aramaic scholar Dale Hoffman, who's with us, and going to be sharing some of the Aramaic ideas from the ancient teachings. And we'll be doing a dialogue with Dale. And Dale, welcome to the show. Terry, Tim, everybody, welcome.
Hello.
How do you be, sir? What's exciting in your world?
Oh, what's exciting? Well, after taking most of 2011 off to spend a lot of time at home, especially with our little baby girl, we just in the last 14 days, we've scheduled 19 new events across America, so everything's back into high gear again, and I'm excited, too. I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, I know how that goes. Jeanie and I did 30 events in 30 days up until about 2 weeks ago, and then we took 5 days off and started again. And we just, tonight we'll do our 6th event, and we'll do another one tomorrow. We'll do another one Sunday. We'll do another one Monday, and then we'll start a 3-day mini intensive on Friday, and then we'll be doing 2 back-to-back 9-day intensives. So everything is rock and roll. It's definitely cranking up into high gear, and it's time for change on planet Earth. So welcome to the show.
Oh, it absolutely is time for change.
So we've been excitedly working with the tools and the process. Everybody that's been on the show in the last week, there's been lots of process happening, and of course we've mentioned your name several times in talking about the Aramaic Fridays and the exciting input that you've had to the process of forgiveness. And so here we are, ready to take things to the next level. What do you have on your mind at this moment, Dale?
Well, I'm looking forward to getting back to the Beatitudes, because that was awesome. Tim is here, right? Because when he was adding in was great too. So that was a good one last week, wasn't it?
Was an awesome show, yes.
So that's what's on my mind. But
We stopped with, we got through 1, 2, and 3, so we're on 4.
3 in an hour. That sounds like a good pace. There's so much. They're so rich. There's just, especially in the first 3, there's so much in those first 3 that, yeah. I hear silence and a clicking sound.
Oh, I was just asking Jeanie if she was up close to her phone or if she was at a distance, because she sounded like she was at the bottom of a barrel.
I was going to say in the middle of a barrel, but, middle, bottom, that works.
So are you there, Jeanie? Hello, Jeanie.
I am. I guess the headset doesn't work with the cell phone very well, so
Okay.
I'll just do it without it.
We just got new cell phones. So here we are looking at these Beatitudes, and I'm going to just read from our Beatitude poster, which is available from our website, the introduction, and it speaks of the first word of each of the Beatitudes, and we addressed that a little bit last week, but just from the poster, here's what we have on our Beatitudes poster. Tuvehun, the first word in Aramaic of each Beatitude, is historically interpreted as a bestowed blessing. Yeshua's words spoke of an earned reward. He delivered simple and practical teachings in his native tongue, Aramaic. In the 6th century, all known Aramaic Bibles were burned, and many foreign ideas, unsupported by his actual words, were put into his mouth. As Yeshua's teachings passed from the Aramaic to Greek to Latin to Old English and finally to Modern English, increasing numbers of distortions occurred. The following explanation of the Beatitudes is based on Aramaic and is as faithful as possible to the actual words of Yeshua. It shows that the Beatitudes are, in truth, instructions and methods for evaluating progress and supporting us in achieving an exciting, reachable goal. Here, Yeshua provided the how-tos for living the greatest and second commandments, the keys to peace, life, and health. His objective was urging that he used this word tuvehun, especially, and repeated this in his first public teaching. This statement before each Beatitude accurately carries, or more accurately carries, the lost meaning of Yeshua's word. God implanted in your mind neural structures which will guide you when they are active. If they are active, you who follow these instructions will come into conscious possession of and be able to use this latent guidance system designed to make available thoughts and actions that will increase your happiness and well-being. So, Dale, why don't you take it from there and just add your thought to that, and then we'll go to that third Beatitude, or maybe just a quick repeat, the fourth, and maybe a quick repeat of the first three from you.
Well, the tuvehun, there's two most important aspects of that word. That one is the EY sound in the middle genders that feminine. So what that means, that's the same sound that's at the end of, or it's the same meaning of the ta, which is at the end of malkuta, which is what's at the end of the first Beatitude, which is that word translated kingdom. That ta sound, as well as the EY sound, the a in tuvehun, genders the word feminine. What that means is that it's something that's a state of being. It's something that's happening within you rather than, in other words, it's a blessing that comes through you rather than a blessing that can come at you. Just like in the Lord's Prayer when it says Tete Malkuta, meaning thy kingdom come, it doesn't mean come at me. It means thy kingdom come, or thy essence, that shining essence, allow that to come through me. And the other key there, besides that femininity of the word, is the tuv, which literally means ripe, R-I-P-E, like a piece of fruit ripe. And the way I often ask people is when's the only moment in time that you can judge a piece of fruit as being ripe? And that's when you put it in your mouth and you sink your teeth into it and the juice is running down your face and you're smelling it. It's in this present moment. And understanding that tuv is something that's a very present moment experience, and when we're in that present moment, we awaken these latent, literally what you could almost say like a latent, like a stream system, gateway. We speak of the neural structures, something that's implanted within us, and it's our natural state of being. And that essence shines from us rather than a blessing coming at us. And then those first three Beatitudes are essentially home in breath, home in ruka, and that word home also means empty, not poor as in lacking something, but empty as in you find your home within breath, spirit, all of these eternal forces, but it's not something, you're not doing it to get something. You're actually being empty in that, allowing yourself to be in this present moment with the process of your breath. And, of course, when you do that, you awaken that shining essence, that malkuta, the queendom, that beautiful, that emanation, the emanation of the presence of life itself. The second beatitude, avile, which would be literally, it's just allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Whatever is happening for you right now, you are actually stepping into that emotion in Latin, motus anima, which means spirit, breath, or energy and motion, literally, and you're allowing yourself to feel it. And then in allowing yourself to feel that, it's like when you stop resisting and you allow yourself to be with what is right now, then the process is allowed to sort of run itself out. And it's our resistance of our inner feelings that recreates them and intensifies them and causes our suffering. So home in the breath, for you will realize that shining presence, the essence, that blessedness that we're talking about, feel what you're feeling, because literally what happens is when you allow yourself to feel it, it's allowed to pass away. And that the word at the end actually means seeing the face of that which you long for. And I tell people, imagine like you're deep in some kind of emotional turmoil, and what's the one thing you want? You know, people are honest, they want to be rid of that. And you can liken that to having a child that you haven't seen in 3 years, you don't even know if they're alive, and all of a sudden here they are on your front doorstep. How would you feel about that? Well, that's what you awaken when you allow yourself to feel what you're trying not to feel. And then the third beatitude, which is makike, which is an inner softening. It's letting it breathe and letting it flow. You allow it to flow by feeling it, and how do you feel it? Which is by breathing. And it's 1, 2, 3. It's a 3-step process. And then the second half of the third beatitude was not in Aramaic that we inherit eternal life, or inherit the earth, but that we realize that we actually are the earth. That word in there translated as inherit, what that actually means is something that already is, that you wake up to the realization that, oh, I am that. I am the earth. I am of the earth. And that's, of course, where the word humility comes from, not meekness, but humility comes from the word humus, which literally means of the earth. And what a beautiful insight to jump into the fourth. And I'm sure we could go on forever, again, just about the first three, because there's so much richness in those first three. It's a step-by-step process, and it's very clear in Aramaic, if you've got the eyes to see. I got to add that in.
Yeah, it does definitely take that. And as you talk about the ripeness, the way the Greeks translate the word evil as something terrible and awful, when in fact it, aside from being missing the target altogether, can also be properly translated as incomplete. And that as we move into the Beatitudes, we come into the state of completeness or ripeness, evil not being you're bad, you're nasty, you're wrong, but rather in the Greek sense of the word, but rather it's just a state of incompleteness, and that it is this that will fulfill and complete us and make us, quote unquote, ripe.
That's it, exactly.
Awesome. So the fourth of the Beatitudes takes us into the historical interpretation. Is blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for you shall be fulfilled. And in the Aramaic, it's actually speaking about activating neural structures at the root of your perception. The Aramaic's the only language that has a suffix, uta, that when it's added to a word speaks about how that, whatever that word represents, is controlling perception, decisions, and behavior from an unconscious level. And there was such a deep level of understanding of how the mind operates that is just, it has no expression in English, in German, in Russian, in Latin, in Greek, it's just not there. It doesn't speak about the active neural structures that provide us with our perceptions, decisions, and behavior. And this one that has been spoken of as hunger and thirst for righteousness in Aramaic, as we bring it out of the Kabor's manuscript, speaks of the mind structure underlying the attitude, judgment, and behavior described as just and fair behavior between people. And the reward is that you'll achieve it, that you'll get to experience that. And there's the story about the teacher that's in the middle of the river, and the student comes to him and says, how do I get to God? How do I get this direct experience of this awesome presence of love that you're speaking about? And the teacher grabs the student and stuffs him under the water and holds his head under until he's almost down to his last, wriggle and jolt, almost drowned, and he pulls him up and says, well, why did you do that to me? He said, you're going to want to have that state of being as much as you wanted your next breath. And so here the Aramaic is speaking of your desire for this neural structure active in you rather than the neural structures of hostility, fear, grief, pain, rage, sadness, hatred, vengeance, having this neural structure that really provides you with the ability to be in just and fair behavior. How does that fit for you, Dale?
It's a fascinating thing, the uta that you're speaking about, because the ta, I love how it actually says it in the Khaboris Enlightenment in the publication, because it speaks of the word sneh, which is that word hate in Aramaic. Sneh just means hate. There it is. There's a stagnant word. It's out in the air. Sneh ta would be a hateful state of being or attitude. In other words, you have a perception that's hateful. You could look at someone and you could say, I hate him. If you put u in there as rather just sneh is hate, sneh ta would be that hateful state of being, the attitude, the perception, and then you put sneh u ta in there. When you've got the u sound, I tell people that's like ing in English. It puts action into it. It's something that you're actually acting on. So there can be hate, there can be the hateful state of being, and then the hateful state of being that comes from your perception. In other words, something that you're acting on, just like the word ha-iman uta, faith. When he said faith without works or action is dead, that u sound genders that, of course, if there's not action, then it's not really faith. And it literally says in Aramaic, hunger and thirst for the absolute truth. And to think about that word kianuta, that one that's translated as righteous. Righteous today really doesn't mean what it meant. Even 50 years ago, it was a huge word in the jazz movement, within jazz music. Righteous was and it still meant what it meant then, as in beautiful, and there's just such a beauty here. But literally in Aramaic, that kian, the kian root, means that you literally see and act, you perceive and act in all of your actions with everyone that you come into contact. And that, of course, includes the earth and everything that we think is non-human and somehow lesser, or at least some may think that, but that you literally have all of your perceptions and actions with all of your surroundings equally, fairly, and as one unified life. And understanding that, I kind of liken that to a mother that they say on airplanes, the first thing they say that is when the oxygen mask drops, what would be righteous? Would it be righteous for me to give that oxygen mask to my child? No, actually what would be righteous, acting in the best interest of everyone involved, is for me to get that oxygen mask on so I have my lifeline first and I have my essence, I'm plugged back into the system, and then I can offer that to my child. That's righteousness. And it's not something that you make a mental decision about. It's something that when you do those first three Beatitudes, the fourth one just naturally flows out of that. And understanding that when you're not seeking to grab something away from someone, but you're actually relating with them on an absolutely level playing field, that you realize that nesbun, that fulfilled, complete, whole state of being, almost like you're letting go of what you think you need out of a situation, and you allow yourself to be in that level with the other person, and that's when you realize that true wholeness. It's such a beautiful insight, whereas you look at it in our common English, and especially since we've lost the meaning of the word righteousness, it doesn't really make any sense. A lot of things don't make sense, but that's probably one of the most perfect examples, I think, the fourth Beatitude.
Just a little aside there, Dale, is there's an awesome show in Branson, which we saw last year, where Bill Medley, one of the Righteous Brothers, is playing. He has his own show, and he shared how the title of their group came together, and these two young men, when they first started out, literally worked in a club, primarily a club with people of color, and after their shows, they'd come up and, do the high five and say righteous, and after a while it just stuck, and they became the Righteous Brothers. So that was kind of interesting. And anybody who gets to Branson, if you get a chance, catch his show. It's like being with an awesome piece of history to spend a couple hours with Bill Medley as he talks about his experience. And I didn't know half of the things that they did. When they opened for Elvis Presley, they opened for Mick Jagger, they opened for the Beatles. I mean, it was a pretty awesome career, and so it's really an awesomely fun show to hang out with Bill Medley for a couple hours. Tim, do you have anything to add from the translation that you've been working from?
Can you
on
hear
that
me?
particular beatitude? I can hear you.
All right. Well, it's the Yayam's interpretation is resting in their deeper longing, they shall feel the power of spirit move to carry them in the direction of their true fulfillment. And it clearly needs to be read in the context of the first three, where you make your home in the breathing unity, and then you're restored once you allow your inner pain to surface, letting love carry you to greater wholeness. And then, having made soft what was rigid within, a new ripeness shall bring you, renewed inspiration and confident strength will flow through you, and then, resting in their deeper longing, they shall feel the power of spirit move to carry them in the direction of their true fulfillment.
That's awesome.
It's like you keep saying it's a series of instructions. Make your home in the breathing unity, allow any painful negative thoughts to surface, soften what was rigid within, allow a new ripeness, and then once you're resting in your deeper longing, the power of spirit will move to carry you in the direction of your true fulfillment. It's about allowance at a whole new level, a whole new way for the Western mind, at least my Western mind.
I think it's most Western minds. Yeah.
Yeah, and to move in that, then there's going to be right use of everything. There'll be nothing that anyone would even conceive of taking advantage of, because out of that space of connectedness, and one of my favorite sayings from Einstein is he talks about how if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. And when you hear that and you recognize that in the breath, in the wholeness, you are one, then you can only do what is, righteous, that is right use, what supports the whole of this human organism called human life and the connectedness of it all. So it's pretty exciting to see how even the physicist, somebody with as great a mind as Einstein, is coming right around the circle to let's get us back to that wholeness, and how Einstein, he gave up his German citizenship in order to leave a country that was in the abusive state of war and slaughter, and it was so out of harmony with that right useness that Yeshua says comes to us. And of course, if we actually step into that space, then what we're going to find is precisely what we are, and that is the active presence of love. And functioning out of that, we're going to be able to perceive for the benefit of the whole, not just the little separate self that is an hallucination of the left brain, and we'll be able to function out of it. And so what Yeshua says in this particular beatitude is, okay, now it's yours. You'll attain it. If you really want that state. Now, of course, it's going to take some work, because this operating system that we've inherited, that's 1,000 generations in development, has had some pretty poor programmers in it. And there are a lot of neural structures that underlie taking advantage of, theft, robbery, manipulation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so to move into something different is the idea of this particular beatitude. So, Dale, your thoughts?
One of the things that I think strikes me the most, and I say it a lot, is that the way that we're used to looking at the Beatitudes is like that set of theological promises, and it's like we're having a relation. I've probably said this on every show, but it's like we're having a relationship with lots of mental concepts rather than actually putting them into practice and living them. And it's one of those things that if you don't, and it's not even making a claim that Aramaic is a miracle language or anything like that, I'll put that to the side, but so much as no matter what language something was originally spoken in, for me, I feel it's really, really important to see what something says in its original language. It seems like something that's real important to me. I thank Mel Gibson all the time because, it's funny, because I say thank God for Mel Gibson because he made it a lot easier for a lot of us when, whatever it was, 11 or 12 years ago, he put out this film that, as incredibly violent and obviously axe-grinding that it is, in my opinion at least they got people thinking in some ways about Aramaic that, hey, people will come up to me and who didn't even realize that, and they'll say, I never thought about the fact that he never spoke English. And I'm like, guess what? I studied, I was deep in the Jesus teachings, and I never thought about it either until I was about, 21 or 22 years old. I'm like, Aramaic, Michael Ryce, what do you mean? What is Arabic? They're like, no, Aramaic. Aramaic, what is that? Well, it's the language Jesus spoke. Oh, well, that's nice. And then I'd go on to the next thing. And then it was that time down there in Clearwater when it was the Why Again workshop with you, and I mean, you could have peeled me off the ceiling because it was like, oh my God, I thought I had a handle on the Beatitudes, and I could have probably spouted theology for pages on end about it. And I had to be able to have that humility from that third Beatitude to be able to let myself be deconstructed and realize I didn't really know anything because it didn't have anything really to do about knowing. It had to do about living it. And when you look at it in Aramaic, it's all about living, and it's got almost nothing about doing other than doing what he's saying in a particular way. But it's about a state of being. And, man, I mean, it's just awesome stuff. I'm floored. Every time I hear it, it just floors me. The Beatitudes is probably one of the most perfect examples of anything in any language that I've ever seen of, look, do this and you get that. It's real simple. It's real clear. And it's not theological promises. He's talking about states of being. It's just phenomenal. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, you bring up the movie The Passion, and a lot of people resisted it because of the violence that was in it. But I don't know whether Mel Gibson would agree with me or not. I've seen the film several times. It's an awesome place to go and breathe and allow neural structures that are not of righteousness, the ones implanted in us as children that told us it was all our fault and, just 1,000 insanities. And what I see Mel Gibson having captured in that film is Yeshua being in this state of the neural structure that we're talking about here being active. And while there is pain inflicted upon him, he does no suffering. There's an awesome scene. And again, I don't know whether Mel Gibson would agree with me or not, but there's an awesome scene where Mary his mother is trying to get to him, and she just can't handle it. She just can't go there. And finally, there's a place where she's almost catching up with him, and she looks, and he falls, and it's the cross and smash, and really obviously very very painful. And in that particular scene, she turns away because she can't handle it. And then he captures Mary processing herself. And what she does is, as she turns away, she goes back and remembers him as a small child falling and hurting himself. So he plays in the film her visualizing this little boy, Yeshua, falling and hurting himself, and her going to him and holding him tenderly, and then she's able to turn and go back to him. And he says to her, "Mother, behold, I make all things new. Mother, you're in pain over this. Or pardon me, you're in suffering over this. Mother, let go of your suffering." The presence of this awesome love of God will transform this pain that has become our illusion into healing. I love what the 13th century mystic, Sufi mystic, Rumi says. He says, with love, all pain becomes medicine. And so here's this man that holds this active presence of love through all of this pain inflicted, and having no pain in himself, having forgiven all of that, having bled that out in advance, he's clean. And so he is the space of this particular beatitude. He is the space of this kenuta, this mind structure underlying the attitude, judgment, and behavior described as just and fair behavior between people. And he can bless and he can bring healing to everyone involved in the insanity. Would our world change if we could get just a few people to come to that state where they could hold to their human lives and to this neural structure he speaks of so powerfully that no glitch in our non-human system could take us out of that? What a powerful space to bring healing to the earth. And that's what our invitation for everyone is every day in order to create this world of peace, and that is we invite each of you that has any form of hostility or fear each day to reach for the forgiveness worksheet, for the forgiveness tool, and to forgive in you every form of hostility or fear that can take you out of your human life. And as you do that, you become the space of this particular beatitude. And Yeshua said that a little leavening leavens the whole loaf. This is the physics Yeshua. And he's saying to us, if we can just reach critical mass, look, I've flung the door open wide. Everybody can do it now. Who's going to do it? Who has the courage to do the work it takes to live in this neural structure rather than the neural structures pounded into us by the insane world, the rage, the fear, the grief, the pain, the hatred, the vengeance, and the war? And one of my early mentors used to say it would only take 8 human beings on planet Earth to change the whole game. I think we're getting close to critical mass, and I delight in us being able to have this conversation. And by the way, if you are in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area, we are at Unity of Tampa tonight doing our final free workshop of the week, and we're going to be doing naturopathic keys to health. Tomorrow we've got mind shifters and still point breathing. On Sunday afternoon, we're actually going to do a mind shifters support group. We're going to do the first in the mind shifters group here in Tampa at Unity North, and we're going to do a worksheet practicum. So from 4 to 6 on Sunday afternoon, if you're in the Tampa St. Pete area, come and join us and be part of the process of healing ourselves, each other, and the planet.
I got to say really quick, too, that when my wife and I first saw Passion of the Christ, it was down in Pinellas Park, Florida, and when we went, there was just busloads full of churches, Christian churches, and it was and including children, it was such a energetically intense experience for us to be able to see that film in that context, and I have such a great thankfulness for being able to do that. And I must say also that we actually have gatherings in our home when we have people over and actually watch it. And we got it on Blu-ray about maybe 2 months ago. And we've got our surround sound system, the big TV. And I talk a little bit before we actually watch the film, and I say this is the opportunity. I look at a lot of films like that, Apocalypto. Of course, a lot of them are Mel Gibson films, Braveheart, certain films where we've got a choice. We can either go blotto and resist what's going on, resist what is triggering in our consciousness and try to look away, try not to feel it, or we can live the Beatitudes, look at it, and allow that triggering to be an opportunity for healing, which is why Yeshua said, love your enemies. What he really said in Aramaic, there wasn't a clear word for enemy. What he actually said was to love or spark that divine love, bring that heat and light forth in the center point of your being with those people that you stop breathing in the presence of, the ones that trigger your stuff, because those are the ones that give you the opportunity, those are the situations in life that give you the opportunity to see those internal dynamics that normally are locked away for you. That's why someone like me can be, so great at communicating a great spiritual message, but what really matters is what's it like when I go home? How do I relate with my children? Because children are these, of course, they're great at triggering that kind of stuff in us. And when we learn to use our entire life like that, it's like a new level of the work to be able to see what's going on in the world and do my own processing in relation to that, understanding that I'm also a co-creator in that, a conscious co-creator, and I'm also a conscious co-decreator, you could almost say. And that's really what the work is about. It's being able to, after you practice and practice, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and then eventually you're doing forgiveness real time right there in the moment when it comes up. And when you get to that point, it's a really awesome process, because that, like, I think of moments when I was a child where I went blotto and I didn't talk to certain friends for months after it, because after certain things that would go on when you're 10, 12 years old, because I didn't know how to process anything, didn't realize that if I was able to stand there right there in their presence and we could actually do it together, then there's that space for healing, that we could have had these amazing awakenings even at the age of 10. But our culture is not really teaching that, at least not en masse. But that's why, for me, and that's why I know for you and Jeanie, that's why we're out there, and Tim and everyone, that's why we're doing the work, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take more people and more people doing it, each of us doing our own work, and it gets easier and it gets easier when one more person is there, and one more and one more. And just in the last 17 years that I've been personally involved with the Aramaic, it's night and day from the way it was then to the way it is now. And everybody seems to be talking about spirit and healing, and of course it's catchphrase, but yet it's happening. And here we are. We're the ones we've been waiting for. This is the awakening. This is the revelation. This is the apocalypse, which of course is the lifting of the veil at the end of time, if you look at it in Greek. But it's happening, and we're in the middle of it. And I'm in one of my honor moments and thankfulness of I'm just honored to be here, to be involved. I really am.
Well, I hear you loud and clear, and I'm with you in that, the blessing and the honor of being able to do that. And one of the beauties of this world with the media, although there's certainly the downside where a lot of people are programmed and structured out of the insanity in a lot of films. If you're conscious, you can go to the film that would create insanity in someone else, and it will be the space where, instead of going out and having to manifest something in your life out of that hidden part of your mind in order to get to look at it. You know, when they said to Yeshua, how do you tell where somebody's at? He said, you look at their fruit. You look at their results. And so if we hold a part of our mind with pain and suffering in a dissociated state, refuse to look at it, then we'll press that outward into our creative process. And here we go. We've got pain and suffering in our world and a reason for it. And then we get to do our forgiveness work. It's like the cosmic 2x4 comes up and hits us alongside the head. However, you can sit in all manner of film with all manner of insanity that reflects your issues. You can breathe. You can sit with worksheets in hand, and you can forgive and collapse those things without having to go to the whole process of manifestation. So I see a big benefit side, while there's a great downside to the insanity out of the media. There's actually a movie out there called I Am, which is pretty powerful if you get a chance to see that ties in with this whole process. So that's awesome. And the next beatitude is historically interpreted as, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And of course, I've watched people in their ego trips being, I'll just be merciful to them, And in Aramaic, what it speaks about is you who have rakhma, and this ties into the first law when they ask Yeshua, what's most important in all of the law? And law in Aramaic is not the rule of a superior. Law is just something that happens. It isn't about obeying somebody or taking orders from somebody or being controlled or told what to do. That's a whole scam to keep people from understanding what law means. Law happens. The law of gravity, if somebody steps off a cliff, there's no great God of gravity that says I'm going to break bones in the bottom. Gravity just happens. If you know how to fly an airplane, it's because you understood and honored the law of gravity. You honored what happens. And in Aramaic, the whole idea of the law is to be able to understand and therefore honor the way the eternal forces in the universe operate. And so this particular beatitude ties in to the first law, which said to have rakhma, a condition actually in the frontal lobes of the brain that maintains human life. So when you think of the Creator, when you think of neighbor, which is in Aramaic anybody you think about, if you maintain this condition that was called rakhma, then you have a gateway for human life to enter your human physiology. If you close that gateway, then you lose your human life and you start living as a non-human, as a set of programs, and whatever's structured in the structure is what will run you. And so what Yeshua is talking about here is this condition, and that when we have this condition continuously, then what's going to happen is our manifestation is going to be that of that same thing, that rakhma. So having this pure love, we're going to get to experience or receive that pure love. And, of course, that's what everybody wants. That's what everybody's effort's about. Even the most hateful is still looking for how do I get, well, what they call love or approval. But this is more tuned to knowing exactly how the human organism works, how the brain works, how the energetic gateways work in the system. And so this condition in the frontal lobes of the brain is one that your culture at this point isn't necessarily going to support you in maintaining. They'd love nothing more than for you to be in hostility or fear, because you make a great slave. People aren't very bright when they're in hostility or fear. Their perceptual minds are weakened and defiled. And a defiled mind is a stupid mind, and a stupid mind is a controllable mind. And so when we're stupid, in hostility or fear, I love what Einstein says about hostility. He says anger only finds a home in the bosom of a fool. And so to maintain this condition is to maintain a gateway. And when that gateway is open, your human life can enter your human form and enter into the world. And as it enters into the world, you receive the manifestation of that rather than the manifestation of the generational insanity that's been structured into us. How does that fit for you, Dale?
Oh, this is one of those ones that for me is the way I describe the fifth beatitude is it's like 1% out of 100. Of what's possibly there. When I see the word merciful, and I'll even see Aramaic scholars translate it like that so that they can maintain their theological frame. Let me say this one to you because it's got such a beautiful sound to it. Tuve hun lam rachmane, delehun nehun rachma. You've got rachma twice there, and it's literally saying that when you exemplify, radiate rachma, that you get that back in kind. The amazing, I can just break that down phonetically. Rachma. Ra is a Coptic sound. It's a Coptic sound that Aramaic borrowed that means a shining forth of heat and light. You always hear of Sun Ra, the god of the sun in Egyptology. So we've got Ra. The middle sound is chum. Chum is womb. It's the old Hebrew word for womb or interior place, center point of body, center point of being. And the last sound is ma, which is, of course, the eternal sound in cultures and languages across the earth for mother and birthing. A birthing, shining forth of heat and light from the center point of your being. And this is one of those ones that I got some great insights from Rocco Errico years ago. He was speaking of the Hebrew Bible in the Old Testament and how when it went into Greek, they really screwed up the translation really bad. In in the Septuagint, which happened. It actually went from Hebrew into Greek before Yeshua ever walked the earth by as much as 100 to 300 years prior to him even being alive. And it's amazing how they can mess this up so bad. I can't remember where it was, where it says, was it Colossians? I can't think of it, where a woman's husband's leaving to go on this long journey, and she may never see him again. He may die. She doesn't know if he'll even return. And it literally says in the Old Testament, her husband put his hand in the hole of the door, in other words, to leave, and her bowels moved for him. And Rocco's got these great things. Of course, properly translated, her husband put his hand in the hole of the door, and her passion stirred for him. And it's amazing that it means not only center point of being, it also means center point of body. So it could also mean bowels. But what that means is you're living from that. Where is it that when you've got those rumblings in your life, when you're truly quaking? And I don't mean quaking in fear. I mean quaking in awe, like holding that baby in the first 20 minutes of life. That's all happening around your solar plexus. And this is talking about living from your gut. And I would love it if you could, there's so much you could shine on this when you talked about, I think it was someone was it California, maybe L.A., working with scientists, or maybe it was a native Aramaic speaker. They didn't even know. It's one of those words that you really don't have words to describe in English because it's so completely experiential. And I know that there's people that have done actually scientific studies, including on Tibetan monks, to try to figure out what exactly is going on in the human brain when this happens. And I do know that what we call rakhma, this state of being, has been linked to a pretty rare brainwave called gamma, which is something that guys that have been Tibetan monks that have been meditating for 20, 30 years, their brain leaps up, not goes down, which is usual, but it actually jumps up into these gamma brain waves, which they call the love vibration, the compassion, the empathy vibration. And I know that there's a lot of people that are doing scientific studies on that. And, of course, when we think of it in Tibetan Buddhism, we're not thinking that, hey, that's a similar state of being to what Yeshua was talking about. But wasn't it someone you met, I think, Michael, in like L.A. or something, was talking about rakhma? I can't remember exactly what the phrase was, but...
What you're referring to is that we worked with an Aramaic community out in California, and, you know, there's a whole community of people there that still speak Aramaic as their native language. And when we asked them the question, we had established that rakhma was this condition in the frontal lobes of the brain, and we asked them what it meant. And what they said was that in their tradition, the exact meaning of the word had been lost, and that their tradition said that it was the most precious jewel that one could possess. And, of course, the most precious jewel that a human could possess would be the gateway or the opening through which human life comes, which is in the frontal lobes of the brain, where this filter is contained. And there's actually a medical doctor, Dr. Robert Heath from Tulane University, and Dr. Heath did bone implant EEGs where he measured brain waves. And the conclusion he came to, he was able to measure what he called 3 signature frequencies of the brain, and the 3 frequencies were hostility. He associated with hostility, fear, and with love, or what we would call rakhma here. And what he said was that hostility destroyed the bodies of the hostile, fear destroyed the minds of the fearful, and love rebuilt both. So Yeshua knew what he was talking about. He knew precisely what he was talking about. The active presence of love. Let's maintain it. Let's live a human life. What an awesome opportunity.
You know, one thing that I always love to add with this beatitude is also letting people realize that our job in this is not it's not concerning ourselves with what comes back. It's about us being in rakhma. And when we're in that state of being, we awaken that presence of rakhma in another, and it doesn't necessarily always look like someone's coming to you with this beautiful throw their arms around you thing, because what happens is if they've got a lot of junk piled up on their light, lots of bushel baskets, What's important for you is that you can live these other Beatitudes in relation right up to this fifth one, that you're able to be in that from doing your own work and doing your own work and doing your own work, because sometimes when rakhma is awakened in another person, a lot of junk flies out. And it's our job to maintain that presence, to be that candle flame that never flickers though the worst goes before it. But the only way we can do that is about coming from that place of pure heart in us, understanding that it's going to awaken that in another. And if we can be that space, to hold that space for healing for them, we can help them heal in a way that they may have never in their entire life ever experienced healing before. And I think that's the most, it really makes me think of Mother Teresa. They asked her, amazing, here's a woman, all that she had done, and in the last years of her life, she's constantly racked in her journals with, am I doing enough? Am I really doing enough? But someone asked her, how in the world can you do that? How can you pick off the worms off of someone's body who's literally dying in your arms? Literally with eaten flesh. She said, I only see the face of Christ in every person who I meet. I mean, think about that. That's the fourth beatitude and the fifth beatitude rolled into one thing, and it's never about what you're getting. It's always about being in the space, and it's about being level and being respect and honor with everybody that you come into contact with, everyone.
Awesome. Yes. That's where we want to live. And Dr. Kim, if you give us Jam's translation of this beatitude.
Of number 5?
Yes, sir.
He says, restored in union with radiant love, it shall begin to extend from their own heart center, blessing others through their creation.
Say it again.
If you follow these instructions, then you are restored in union with radiant love, and it shall begin to extend from their own heart center, blessing others through their creations.
Now, wouldn't the world be different if, when we had every preacher in the country talking about the teachings of Yeshua, that's what he said? That's what he was talking about doing, instead of what passes for preaching, the railing, the raging, the condemnation, the guilt, the fear. I mean, wake it up, folks. It's time for a change. The warmongers have taken over the teaching. You know, and you can listen to the first couple of chapters of my new book, which is kind of on the shelf right now, entitled The End of Suffering, Resurrecting the Original Aramaic Yeshua the Christ. And in that book, I talk about, it starts out with Yeshua saying, you realize they killed me twice. Once they killed my body, and then they killed my teaching. And then he goes on to say, I said, love those who hate you, do good to those who despitefully use you. But trapped as they were in the commandments of men, they could not hear my words. It's time for my words to be heeded. And in another place, he speaks about how we've made the presence of love, the teachings on love, the commandments of God, which again aren't authoritative, do this, it's here's how you will thrive in the energy system. He says you've made it of nil effect by your traditions. The traditions of men are what? War and hatred and greed and vengeance and every form of mockery and insanity. And it's time for us to wake up and turn that around. And let's start hearing the preachers from their pulpits speak about how we achieve this in our churches, in our families, with our children, with our neighbors, and in the Aramaic language, the word neighbor means anybody that you think about. Guess what? If you thought about Saddam Hussein when he was alive, you were thinking about your neighbor. If you thought with hostility or fear, then you became part of the support of the insanity that came out of that expression we called Saddam Hussein. If 350 million people in America had rakhma for Saddam Hussein, the beaming of that energetic pattern of love toward him would have transformed the whole process of what happened there and the insanity that continues to ensue, the craziness that passes for a reasonable way of behaving in this culture that is so bizarre.
Michael?
Yes, sir.
Could we get Dale's take on the phrase, eat my body, drink my blood? This came up in the chat room.
I think that would be awesome. Dale, you want to share your understanding of the idiom of eat my body and drink my blood?
Oh, absolutely. This makes me think of a dear friend of mine, Albert LaChance, who I think you talked with him once, Michael. He's got a phenomenal book called The Modern Christian Mystic, where he takes a lot of the sacraments and rituals that we really lost sight of, and they became more about the action rather than the consciousness behind the actions themselves. And one thing that I think we talked about this in one of the previous shows, when we talked about especially in the essence of, we got to remember one thing, first of all. One, that when Yeshua was saying these kinds of phrases, he was using the word enana, not in this case, but when he spoke things like, I am the way and the truth of life, I am the bread of life. Ina means I. In other words, if he was talking about himself when he said that I am the light of the world, he would say, Ina am the light of the world, or I am the bread of life, inana lachma dahai. That would be Ina lachma dahai, I, Jesus, am the bread of life. But what he actually said was Ina, which means the I inside of the I. It wasn't about him talking about himself. He was literally talking as the presence of God, as the presence of life itself. And when we speak of the consuming the body and the blood, we have to remember one thing, or to at least even know one thing, which is that in Aramaic the word blood is dema, which means blood, juice, wine, sap, or essence. And then when he's talking about that, he's talking about you don't just do a little bit of this. You don't do 99% of this. That idiom, when you come from ancient Aramaic, is saying you've got to be in 100% or nothing. You've got to eat the entire body of what I'm doing. You've got to live exactly as I'm living and exemplify the essence of who I am and what I'm sharing with you. That's the only way you can come to the realization of these states of being that he was trying to share with us. It was never about theology. He would have been the first one to either laugh at or bust on theology if he were here today. It's about saying, look, it's 100% or nothing, that you've got to take in the entire body, the entire essence of everything that I'm sharing with you before you can understand these, literally, the way life was meant to be lived in this awakened state of being. That's what it's all about. It's 100%.
Yeah, and you can easily verify that one with another passage where he says, if I come in my own name, I'm a false prophet.
Absolutely.
And he's speaking of not of his own literal name or his own ego identity, but he's speaking of that higher self, that true being that we are and that we are designed to live from. And we're down to about 60 seconds now, so we're going to have to sign off in just a few seconds here. I'll just say DaleAllenHoffman.com. You've got 19 events in the next...
Oh, I've got dozens of events. 19's just the ones I scheduled in the last 10 days. So, Chicago. If anybody's in the Chicago area, we're looking for some event things to schedule there in May that we're sort of down to the bone on. But other than that, I mean, we're pretty much all over the U.S. Yeah.
Okay. Well, talk with Dr. Tim. He's in Chicago.
He's in
and
Chicago.
I'm sure that,
I didn't know that.
Get with Dr. Tim, and he's in Chicago, and I'm sure you guys can.
I think I did know that. I think we communicated a couple years ago. I forgot. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for being with us. Take the tools, use them, bring a stranger to Monday's show, and have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com. theological.com.